Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Thursday the 28th of November 2019. And yesterday we produced a video entitled $100 Silver and Silver Supply Squeeze Coming Soon. We've put a link in the description box below, which shows some of the headlines a number of YouTube clickbaiters and pumpers use to suggest that you have to get into silver as well as gold now, before it's too late, as it's about to skyrocket to the moon. Now, we mentioned in that video that today and tomorrow we shall actually tell you the truth as far as it can be discerned from information provided by both those involved in mining and those actually who create relatively objective reports about the industry. Now, we say relatively objective because even we have to accept that often, unless it's an academic study, most people will not read a report unless it possesses some form of outrage, contention or concern. So to some degree we have to try, where we can, to factor in what authors and public speakers often call poetic license, or President Donald Trump calls truthful hyperbole. So let's now address this issue of a silver squeeze. Firstly, we have to separate the two usages of this term. Traders use the term short squeeze, which is a rapid increase in the price of a stock that occurs when there is a lack of supply and an excess of demand for that stock. Short squeezes result when short sellers cover their positions on a stock, resulting in buying volume that drives the stock price up. The same applies to commodities as well as equities. It's often a short-term phenomenon, as usually the market then corrects itself as more stock or supply becomes available to the market. It doesn't mean there is a shortage of that stock, there is just a temporary shortage available to sell at the time buyers wish to buy. And vice versa, of course. The second usage is in terms of actual physical supply versus demand over the medium to longer term, and it is this issue we wish to address specifically today. Now, before we do, we should declare our own interest in this matter. To be totally honest, with the level of gold and silver we actually own between us, that's those of us within Illuminati Silver, it would be great to see gold and silver prices rise to the $10,000 for gold and $100 for silver that the likes of Keith Newmeyer, Peter Schiff, Mike Maloney, David Morgan and many others constantly refer to. We would make very handsome profits indeed from our holdings and would sell what we own to spend to enjoy our retirement, probably cruising the globe 365 days a year, because it would fund such an event. So if we ever paint a not so enthusiastic picture, or let's say a less enthusiastic one than others, it's always because that's how we see and calculate the situation. Not because we want the prices to fall further. Yes, if they do fall, we may buy more. Sometimes we don't. But we really do already hold enough not to worry about it. Now, it's important that we convey that message, as there are some conspiracy theorists who believe, or pumpers who come onto our channel to create trouble by claiming that we want prices to fall to help the global banks achieve their goal. Well, if we had 1 million subscribers, perhaps their accusations would have at least some logic. Though inaccurate it would appear logical behind that assertion. But the thought that our very dedicated and loyal 16,000 subscribers could, between us, change precious metal prices, of whom perhaps on average 2,000 to 3,000 watch our videos regularly, certainly gives us far more credit and credence than we deserve. Okay, getting back to a silver supply squeeze. Well, where are the facts relating to this actually held? Well, the first source document is the Silver Institute's annual report. Let's take a look at this, and then the second source document, and then a brief look at the description of a previous video that we've produced on the subject. So, as we can see on the 2019 Silver Institute annual report, which covers the world's silver supply and demand up to 2018 and starting in 2009, the area that we can see in particular, and I shall try and enlarge it slightly if I can, in particular is this area here. Mine production. And we can see that mine production actually increased from 2009 to 10 to 11 to 12 to 13 to 14 to 15. Then it stalled and started to decline. In 2016, mine production was 0.3 million ounces less. In 2017, it was just over 16.5 million ounces less than the previous year. And then in 2018, it was 21.2 million ounces less the previous year. And it is this supply figure that many people are referring to as a potential squeeze on silver supply. And then when you actually look at the demand for silver, you can see, if we look at the physical demand down here, you can actually see that it went up in 2011, came down slightly, then went back up in 2013, went down slightly in 14, went up slightly in 15, fell a little in 16, fell more in 17, but then recovered in 2018. So they're saying that your mining supply is 855 and your physical demand is 1033. What they are missing, however, of course, is the fact that mining supply is not the only form of supply. You have scrap, in other words, recycling, and net hedging supply. So, although, once again, supply has fallen, total supply has fallen from the previous year, it was up in 2017 compared to 2016. So these figures do vacillate a little, but in relatively small terms. And if we look at total physical demand, we can see that total demand has actually resulted in a negative, a demand over supply is a negative 80 million ounces, meaning that the demand is greater than the supply by 80 million ounces, allowing for ETP inventory build and exchange inventory build. But 80 million ounces is what our so-called experts are saying is going to cause the silver price to skyrocket. We shall now go on to highlight the second source of information that is currently used to suggest there will be a supply squeeze. Now, the second source of information concerning the potential silver squeeze is the release of Metals Focus Interim Silver Market Review, dated 19th of November 2019. Now, let's look, before we look at the figures, look at their conclusion. Silver to remain in a small surplus in 2019, but improving investor sentiment will help drive the price higher. Now, it says, at the annual Silver Industry Dinner hosted by the Silver Institute, Philip Newman, director at Metals Focus, presented the Metals Focus Silver Institute Interim Silver Market Review, which featured historical supply and demand statistics and provisional estimates for 2019. The following are the key highlights from the presentation. And then it goes into different factors concerning silver. But let's look at the figures ourselves. So, We've already looked at mine production from the Silver Institute's report. From 2015, went down in 16, went down in 17, went down in 18. And it is forecast for 2019. Now, bearing in mind this is a forecast, though whilst metals focus are not always right, we wouldn't necessarily disagree that considerably with them either. And they're predicting another potential 6 million ounces deficit for mine production. However, recycling, they predict, will go up slightly, and net hedging supply will go up slightly compared to the previous year, resulting in a deficit, according to them, of some 5 million ounces in terms of total supply. Now, as far as demand is concerned, and this is where the squeeze comes in, they're saying demand is going to be higher than 2018, and they predict it's going to be just over 1 billion ounces. Now, this therefore results in a deficit of 16 million ounces. And that is the emphasis on the supply squeeze. 16 million ounces. Let's read some of the comments they make and then we'll cast our opinion. Even allowing for the recent modest pullback in the silver price, the last few months have seen a major improvement in investor sentiment towards silver. As a result, silver rallied to a three-year high of $19.65 in early September, which was accompanied by a decline in the gold-silver ratio to a one-year low. Silver is holding comfortably above the range seen in the early part of 2019. Metals Focus expect the silver price to average $16.20 in 2019, up by 3%. We skipped this. For the second year in a row, silver industrial fabrication will hold at a record level. Even so, in the wake of the escalating US-China trade war, several areas of electrical and electronic end uses have struggled, broadly in line with a global economic downturn. However, their negative impact on silver demand has been mitigated by higher silver loadings, especially in the all-important automotive sector. In addition, silver consumption in the photovoltaic sector has also grown as more countries push ahead with the renewable energy projects in 2019. Global silver jewelry and silverware demand is projected to grow by 3% and 4% in 2019. For both, this year's increases are almost entirely led by India, where gains have been assisted by increasing awareness of sterling silver, growth in organized retailing, along with the benefits from restrained silver prices in the first half of 2019. By contrast, US jewelry consumption, the world's second largest single country market, has remained relatively soft due to such factors as competition from gold and company-specific retailing problems. Finally, structural factors have led to further losses in China. They then mention healthy gains are also expected for physical investment in 2019, with sales of silver bars and coins projected to rise by 7% to a 3-year high. In the US, investment is on track to record its first annual increase in 4 years, thanks to improving price expectations and rising price volatility, although levels remain historically low. Note that. In India, the partial recovery that started in 2017 has continued this year, although the sharp rally in the rupee price has seen sales ease recently, particularly in rural areas. Overall, the silver market is expected to record a small surplus in 2019. That said, this metal should be easily absorbed by investors as rising macroeconomic uncertainties and fresh monetary easing by major central banks rejuvenated the appeal of safe haven assets from mid-2019 onwards. Looking ahead, should continue to benefit precious metal prices. Now, we're not going to argue whether there is going to be a small surplus in 2019 or whether there's going to be a small deficit in 2019. And the reason that we're not going to argue that is for one very simple reason. Let's type in above ground silver supply into Google. I may have to move this page to here. Global silver supply. Let's click on that. Now, I'm investigating this at the same time as you, as I haven't looked at this for some time. The demand for silver, what's the date of this? June 25th, metals.com. The demand for silver has been rising for years, but can our global supply of the precious metal keep up? Current estimates harbour the guess that about 1.5 million tons of silver have been mined from the earth over the course of human history. While gold is almost always repurposed, 90% of silver has been used once, is thrown away without being recycled. Another way of putting it, roughly 5 billion ounces of mined silver remain in the world today, just over 4% of the silver ever mined. Above ground silver supply was significantly higher before World War II, when governments held over 10 billion ounces of silver in their vaults. Now that is pertinent, to be fair. Following the incredible rise in industrial demand for the precious metal, governments now own just under 8%. In 2013, over 1 billion ounces of silver from mining and silver scrap recycling were introduced to the global market. As the demand for silver continues to rise, companies that provide the supply are working hard to keep up. Now, today, 2 billion ounces of fine-grade silver, approximately worth $40 billion US, are held by private investors. Now, they then qualify that by saying, while this number sounds staggering, it's small in comparison to the world's $241 trillion in US debt, trillion dollars in recorded assets, an estimated 30 trillion in offshore wealth. Absolutely right, totally agree. But 2 billion ounces is held by private investors. That means it is held in a form that can be provided to the market, admittedly at the right price. Now, there is some argument, and we openly admit this, there is some argument that says others claim that that figure is closer to 1 or 1.5 billion ounces. And we're going to actually take here the worst case scenario and say there is only 1 billion ounces available to the marketplace. And this is why we lay claim that this silver squeeze is a nonsense. 1 billion is 1,000 million. As you can see on the calculator, we've typed in 1,000 million. That is what's available in private hands, potentially available to be sold. This is not accounting for silverware, it's not counting for anything other than people holding silver for investment purposes. We've already mentioned that there is either a deficit of up to 80 million ounces or as low as almost break even. And I'm going to take the 80 million. So let's divide that by 80. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equals. That gives us 12.5 years of continually producing silver at a deficit of a 80 million ounces per year. I'm just going to go back to the Silver Institute's figure. And now, if we notice, the worst ever surplus or deficit, that's where we got the 80 from, just in case you wondered where I made that figure up, net balance. The worst ever is 133.9 million ounces. Let's go back to our calculator. 139, we're going to call it 140. So let's type in now 1 billion this is working on the basis I can do this. 1 billion divided by 140 million. That still gives us 7 years of available silver supply, assuming the figures are correct that there will be a deficit, assuming that it's the worst deficit over the last 10 years, and assuming that we're only using a supply figure of 1 billion available ounces, when other experts claim it's 1.5 and some claim it's 2. If it's 2 billion, that now becomes 14 years. And the other figure we showed you, which was 12.5, becomes 25 years. So what is going to cause a supply squeeze with such a large amount of silver potentially available to the marketplace? There will be a rise in photovoltaics. We doubt there'll be much of a rise in industrial demand, bearing in mind the global economy is actually receding. So we take slight issue with metals focus, but we're prepared to be slightly out, but it'll be a negligible figure. This then comes back to a video we produced a couple of weeks ago. Let's just take a quick look at that. Okay, back again. We're in the back office of Illuminati Silver's video history. And as you can see, these are the videos we've produced quite recently. The one we mentioned earlier, $100 silver and supply squeeze coming soon, ? Where we refer therefore to today's video and tomorrow's. Very quickly, one that didn't get that many views, but those who did view it thought it was interesting. Diamonds as an investment. We do sometimes sway slightly away from silver and gold, only because there are other investment opportunities and competitor investments that sometimes challenge the monies available for gold and silver, though in truth we tend not to think that diamonds is necessarily one of them. Anyways, if we scroll down here, we can see, and the reason that we're looking at this is the range of videos we did about a month ago, where we asked, we did a week, silver, is it an effective hedge against inflation? The truth about the gold-silver ratio. Silver future looks bright, but when? But this is the one we wanted to look at. Silver's rocket will be financial, not physical. Now, this is the point. We have already highlighted the fact that there is enough silver to cater for the current silver demand and supply equation. There is enough silver available to the marketplace, even if the worst deficit in supply over demand for the last 10 years occurs again, and there's enough for at least 7 years to cater for that. So, is there a supply squeeze? No, there isn't. There is enough silver available. The issue, of course, which those who wish to question our hypothesis is, yes, but at what price is it available? Now that's another matter again. For a number of people, a few dollars increase in price compared to what they paid for silver is sufficient for them to release that silver. For others, it might take $5 or $10. Where we can see a squeeze, which will be a slightly different type of squeeze, and that is not necessarily the demand for physical silver, but as we've basically stated in this video, and I hope I can now size it appropriately, we have basically said silver's rocket will be financial, not physical. This video highlights the fact that due to world global slowdown or recession, the physical demand for silver for industrial purposes is likely to reduce. So we're at slight odds with Metal Focus, and therefore the only prospect silver has for a major hike in prices is its demand as a monetary metal, with most activity taking part on the financial exchanges. And then we go on to say today is Wednesday, 16th of October. We're talking almost exclusively about silver this week. Today we're looking at an article, S&P Global Market Intelligence of the 4th of October, entitled Financial Investment to Drive Next Silver Boom Amid Industrial Demand Doubts. It's interesting that Bertincourt is of the same opinion as us. The report concludes with the words, "This means that the relationship between the performance of the global economy and the silver price is far from clear-cut. News of slower growth can weigh on silver as industrial commodities are sold off. But as the macro backdrop deteriorates further, leading to stock market weakness, silver will benefit as investors adjust their portfolios in favor of precious metals." Unquote. And then we sort of conclude with the words, "So there does appear to be light at the end of the tunnel. However, both gold and silver will also have to contend with the possibility, and it is just a possibility, that central banks will be so determined to counter the approaching recession with such low interest rates and QE, we could still see a last leg in the equity bull market before attention is more seriously diverted to precious metals." Now, bearing in mind, we wrote this on the 16th of October, and what has happened since the 16th of October? Gold and silver prices have fallen, and equity markets have hit all-time highs on a number of occasions. So, having now looked at these three separate entities, we challenge any pumper out there to tell us why there will be a supply squeeze, when even taking the worst-case scenario of the past 10 years or so into account, there is still multiple years' worth of supply available. So our conclusion is that there is no silver supply squeeze, but we admit that prices can go up if there is a short-term unexpected demand, probably financial demand though via the exchanges, until the supply then leaves the hands of the 1 billion or 2 billion ounces that are currently held by investors. Now, admittedly, we do not know exactly what that price would be to wrench it out of their hands. But we have seen over the past couple of years is that supply quickly seems to re-enter the market at or around the $20 level, which is why we have seen very rare occasions where it has exceeded that figure. Now, this does not mean that the level cannot be breached, but purely from a mining supply and demand point of view, It's unlikely to be breached by much if we are just taking that fact into account. Now tomorrow we shall discuss why we do not believe $100 silver is feasible, unless there is a pretty cataclysmic financial or geopolitical event which would cause such a rise. Now in the meantime, thank you for listening. Do share your thoughts, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this channel. Not to forget to press the bell sign so you're notified of future videos. And finally, before we go, we produced a video yesterday entitled Join Us Live on Saturday on Discord for a Q&A and trading platform details. We've placed a link to that video in the description box below. It's self-explanatory and alerts you to a live Q&A session we shall be holding on our Discord channel and how you can access it this coming Saturday. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer. Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.